It's hard to form a proper opinion this early. Things change, new or missing information may cloud your judgment. So, take what I say with a grain of salt. With that being said, a good Borderlands game finally, let's go! Borderlands 4 as a whole can be compared to my thoughts on BL3's Bounty of Blood, a relatively isolated story that isn't trying to innovate but renovate. The guns are good, the characters are great, and the plot is fulfilling. The goal of BL4 isn't to change the industry, but to create a game that Borderlands fans will enjoy. And I think they accomplished exactly what they set out to do. We may not have the time to go in as much detail as our previous endeavor, but we'll go in the same order for comparison's sake. And what better to start with than the Let's get this out of the way because it is the biggest problem plaguing this game by far. If you're playing this game on a console, you're probably fine. Really annoyed that you have to spend $30 to not own a single game, but probably fine. But if you're playing this game on PC, there is a really good chance that your performance is going to be lacking. The updates have helped a little bit, but this game is not optimized. Loading in new areas freezes the game, opening the menu will sometimes freeze or crash the game, fighting in large areas with a large amount of enemies will slow down and sometimes freeze or crash the game. I don't have a great PC, but I have a pretty good one. I shouldn't be getting 40 FPS with low settings even if this is a premium game for premium players. This is a solvable issue, but if you plan on getting it now, it certainly can ruin your experience, so keep it in mind. But the game itself is pretty good. Pretty much every issue I had with the guns have been addressed. Legendaries are less rare and less powerful. With no legendaries, you have to work with whatever you find, constantly changing your loadout and build and playstyle to accommodate your drops. And even if you get a legendary, it isn't as game-breaking as they were in 3, and only lasts a couple levels before it gets outclassed by something else. It adds to the chaotic nature of gunfights, it forces you to spend time reading and learning and accommodating for your new guns and variants. It allows for you to appreciate the amazing gun design, and it ensures legendaries aren't just stat sticks that you can wield and have more interesting abilities that you can actually build or play around. Towards the end, legendaries become slightly easier to obtain, but still retain that situational status. The effects they have are far more polarizing, so the wrong legendary in a build won't make much of an impact, and you'll find purples that contest or even trump a majority of the legendaries you find. So there's still a very good reason to look at items that aren't orange, and that's something that I don't think has ever really happened in a Borderlands game. Not counting the uniques, okay? We all know the uniques are broken. The battle against legendaries was one of my biggest concerns leading into this game, and they've handled it with a lot of thought. Of course, there can be mistakes or things they may have missed, but luckily for us, there isn't a single weapon in this game that is extremely problematic and overshadows everything else in its slot, nor provides an unprecedented bonus that results in the obliteration of any enemy or boss that stands in its way, regardless of the character or build you're currently running. How could we be so lucky? The skill trees are significantly improved, becoming a lot more potent and a lot more polarizing. All of the abilities are fun to play with, the augments actually change how your abilities work, the capstones are build defining, and the skills are more rewarding to spec into. With limited points and a lot of specific interactions, it feels like you have to make a choice after every level. In just one Vex skill tree, I have to decide whether I want flat damage or better cooldown rate for more clones, or to focus on elemental damage by critting with my damage over time, or to take the flat damage increase with my elemental damage, creating a second random elemental on top of it. Is this capstone better than this one? Should I spend the rest of my points in this tree or try to gather additional damage from another? There are so many questions that only you can answer. When you can decide what you prefer, when you cater the build to your guns, it makes your build feel like your build. This game is much more fun when there isn't just one correct answer. Any game with a focus on builds needs a lot of build diversity. And I'm well aware that every build is going to be solved in a week or two, but with the addition of legendaries being hard to get before beating the campaign and still a grind to get after you beat the campaign, it makes sure the process of getting there still requires your own creativity, and that makes it a lot more engaging. And the enemies are the weakest part. The boss fights are really good in this game. They worked very hard to give each fight some unique mechanics, and offers a lot more than run backwards and then shoot, like you see in 2 and a large part of 3. The mini bosses also have some unique mechanics, but they are more like the upgraded enemies you are used to. The real problem is in the normal enemies. I like the variety in fights. You have enemies attacking you from a bunch of different distances and angles. It makes priority more important and increases that level of chaos I enjoy. I like that there are multiple factions constantly at war with each other. I like the designs of the wildlife. I like the somewhat random nature of enemy health bars and their resistances. Similar to BL3, there's a lot of initial variety, but once you've seen them all in the first section, things don't really change in the next ones. Yes, it is believable that the order would span across the world and that everything else is somewhat reduced to smaller sections in comparison. But is it interesting? No. It does do a much better job than 3 at creating interesting enemies and giving fights more flavor. There's a lot more enemies attacking you at once, and they will kill you quickly if you aren't paying attention. And you have to put in a lot more effort into not dying, which makes living that much more fun to try to do. But once you enter into your first chaotic gunfight, that's kinda exactly how it's gonna feel in every gunfight after. It personally just gets a bit stale a bit too quickly. Despite this, I still enjoy the gameplay a lot. I think it's the strongest we've ever seen in this series, and that is a welcome surprise.
TJ on the
The music in BL4 is the only major downgrade from its predecessor. Where BL2's serviceable but boring music is a 4, BL3's masterpiece of an OST a 9.5, BL4's is maybe a 6. The quality of the music is still very strong, and there are a few tracks that stand out, but it has an overall generic feeling. Not so much in style, but in vibe. Nothing here really induces emotion or tries too hard to stand out. I have gassed up BL3's soundtrack because almost every single song is begging to grab your attention, and does so in a unique way each time. They contribute to their environment immensely, and provide a special layer of connection with them. This isn't just a fight, it's a fight against the futuristic, arrogant forces of Malawan. This isn't just a place to rest, this is Moxie's bar. It's classy, with a little bit of flair, just like the lady who runs it. This isn't just a weird planet, this is the planet that was hidden from us for centuries. It's unintelligible, it's alien, and yet, it's familiar, it's captivating. We need its answers, but I want to know more. Music is important to set the tone, to make areas, fights, or scenes more memorable, and to give its game some soul. The music in BL4 doesn't pair well with its environments, and that's because the music wasn't made with an environment in mind. There is a noticeable difference in the amount of songs in the OST that have to cover a much larger world. The songs have to be more generic to fit all the different areas you'll fight the Rippers in, or all the different areas you'll fight the Order in. As a result, you'll hear the same songs over and over, and they won't have nearly as much impact on you like before. The music doesn't feel neglected in 4, but it also doesn't feel like it was focused on either. The OST is solid, but it isn't unique, and most importantly, it isn't memorable. Moving on to the story. As I stated in the intro, this story was far less ambitious than 3's, and that is a good thing. They made quite the smart move by having our Vault Hunters crash land on an isolated planet. This let them shave off a majority of the previously established characters, and it has more time to focus on its new characters and plot it wants to follow. Everyone feels far more grounded, talking, acting, and feeling like real people you can connect with, and it prioritizes developing emotional connections when it comes to their dialogue and actions. I was worried that they would go too serious, but there are the occasional jokes, in both conversation and the environment, and because of that, they have a much higher success rate. The plot is rather simple. We're stuck on this planet because of the Timekeeper, and we have to travel the world to gather forces and vital plot MacGuffins to lead the resistance against him. That's about as much as I can say without spoilers, so if you want to skip them, here's the timestamp. While I give you the time to find your phone or Alt-Tab, I'll tell you that I really enjoyed this story, and it's probably the strongest part of this game. Quite the turnaround from the horror that was Borderlands 3. By the way, my previous video is all about the shortcomings of 3. I know it's long, but it goes into much more detail, and I'm really proud of it. So if you enjoyed this video, please go back and give it a shot. Alright, chilling done. Let's discuss. The world is split into 3 factions with a leader governing each one. You need to kill each leader and get their chip in order to gain access to the Timekeeper's lair. You can tackle them in any order since they are all their own smaller stories that only converge at the end. All of them are good in their own special way. The Fatefield storyline focuses on the new. There are no previous characters defined in this area. No, I am not counting Claptrap, which gives you more time to learn about this world and how its inhabitants are dealing with the rule of the Timekeeper. It's likely the first section you're going to do since you're standing in it when you get the option to go anywhere else, so they really hammer home the idea of this world being worth saving. Idolater Soul is a great mini-villain, having a baller plan and an intimidating aura. His boss fight might be my favorite, rivaled only by the Timekeeper himself. Rush and Zadra are the 2 main characters we talk to, and they are both really good. Rush is the embodiment of a good guy, and Zadra is an ex-Order scientist just trying to right her wrongs. You could argue that they aren't complex, but sometimes simple and straightforward just works. I can connect with these characters a lot easier. It makes the plot very easy to follow, and it allows for the side quests to establish their characters further if you so choose. This section is not groundbreaking, but it is still exciting, and it is a very strong starting place. Carcadia Burn offers a bit of both old and new. Levane and Zane are an interesting pair, and their back and forth adds a lot of interest in a comparatively boring section. The Ripper Queen is not as good as Soul, but she is still somewhat intimidating. As far as story goes, it's also not that interesting. You're just stopping her from stealing the moon or something. But it is necessary in order to explain the psychos and the reason you can go to the moon later. It's not bad, but this section feels a bit more shoehorned in, a bit more basic, and a bit less exciting than the section before. The Terminus range has a little bit of new, but we're mostly here for the old. This is our main connection to BL3, and the story of why the returning characters are here in the first place. We see a destroyed Sanctuary 3, a cooped up Amara, and most interestingly, a grown up Hermes. I wonder where his owner is. Foul Lictor is the deadliest villain and possibly the corniest. His lines are cool, but that doesn't stop the fact that he sounds a lot like a Destiny 2 villain most of the time. Still, as far as straight up intimidation goes, he's the best at it. Amara is decent, if not also basic, but the banter between her and Zane is excellent. The best dialogue this game has to offer is with these 2 characters, and while they had a good amount of personality in 3, this is really the first time since the OGs where it feels like they really wanted to do more than just include them in the next game.
Thank you. I'm not accustomed to feeling
human.
weak.
Trust me, I've had a fair share of me lopped off. Some on purpose, some less so. Your mind is gonna fight it. Try and tell you nothing's changed, but the strength is in the changing.
Finally! Good dialogue between 2 characters! Let's go! Into the major spoilers, 3, 2, 1, RJ still being alive was an actual good twist, and his introduction in this section is incredibly well done. But I always find the siren stuff incredibly confusing, and the addition of the phase and him talking crazy does not help at all. Speaking of the phase, apparently Lilith was just in that shit. She is alive and well, I don't really know how, and while I understand they have to retcon her being stupid because she was stupid, going in the complete other direction and having everyone gas her up as the GOAT and gaslight me into thinking she did something in 3 definitely took me out of the immersion. She also isn't used in the story at all, kinda just there to be saved and to give you some motivational words every once in a while.
Vault Hunter, you can do this.
There's only one motherfucking option. Stay fucking hard.
The ending with us seeing her in the future and something Great War is an okay way to bring that plot point back from the pre-sequel, and an okay attempt to patch up the fact that it was completely forgotten about in 3. Still, this is a completely open ending. It kinda leaves you wanting more, and I'm not sure if this Great War is going to be a DLC or something, but if we have to wait for another game to get this goddamn Great War, I'm gonna be pissed. Rest assured that this is still my favorite of the 3 smaller stories by far. This was the section I was most invested in. This one has my favorite villain, corniness and all. This one did the most for the world building, phase shenanigans and all. And this one did the best at exploring the characters it included. except for maybe the most important character. Listen, I am here for honest criticism. I can like something and still point out its flaws. Lilith has been misunderstood and mishandled ever since BL2, and making her an absolute baddie is not going to change that. But yeah, I like the story. The same also goes for the final section after you've killed all the bosses and make your way to the Timekeeper's palace. There isn't a lot I can say without ruining the experience. What I will say is that the Timekeeper wasn't too much of an acting force throughout the smaller sections, only offering comments or minor actions that didn't really affect what was going on. This final section spends a lot of time beefing him up, and proving why he was the big dog. Also, his boss fight is up there for one of the greatest in the game and in the series. If you don't have the knife. Overall, the story is very good. I was invested in the plot, I connected with the characters, and I had fun the whole time. If you are expecting the world, it probably won't meet your expectations, but I would much prefer this smaller story with more time and effort put into it than the overly ambitious and consistently underwhelming story that we got in 3. You can't catch lightning in a bottle twice, and I am very surprised and very happy they didn't try to do it here. But of course, the story doesn't end there. They wanted the experience to last a little longer, so they decided to try something new with an open-ish world filled with side quests.
Guns don't kill people, I do.
There is a lot to do around the world of Kairos, with patrols, puzzles,
Crap, you kidding? You tripped the alarm! Now I gotta rearm the system, clear the log.
mines, vaults, etc, etc, in addition to the usual side quests we've come to expect. The side quests are a huge step up from 3, once again focusing more on the connection to the characters and the world around them, rather than relying on cheap jokes and shock humor. You have the opportunity to get more invested in the lives of both established characters in the main story and the randoms that are there to give this place some life. With the extra time and effort, the serious side quests have more tension, and the funny side quests feel more funny. I haven't played all of them, but almost every single one I have has been a banger.
This is a banger. This is a banger. And I know bangers.
The rest of the stuff around the map is pretty good. There is a major incentive to explore now, as your ammo capacity, or SDUs, are now directly tied to how much you do around the map, which is a nice change. You gain a decent amount of XP for killing random enemies and doing random things, so it doesn't feel like a waste of time to stop and fight. Sometimes I want to do nothing but random stuff around the map, single-handedly creating endangered species or fighting mini-bosses or doing the various puzzles. Sometimes I just want to do the main story or farm. Having the option is nice, and making sure the big question is always answered is nicer. But that question isn't always answered, especially in the Ultimate Vault Hunter mode is the pseudo replacement to Mayhem mode. It increases the enemy's health, increases the damage you take, decreases the amount of damage you deal with incorrect elements, and provides increases to money in world drops. It is certainly more difficult than Mayhem mode and provides significantly less rewards. This is a good thing. One of my biggest issues with 3 was with Mayhem mode and how quickly it allowed you to skip all the effort required to create the strongest Vault Hunter possible. Not only is that avenue taken away, but BO4 has dedicated a lot of resources to make sure the journey of getting there is much more enjoyable. But these changes still do not answer the big question. The question that needs to be answered at this point in the game. Why? What is the point of engaging with these UVH levels? What is gained by turning them on? In my quest to create the strongest character I can, what benefit do I get from going from UVH 1 to UVH 5? While I strongly dislike both the old Mayhem mode and the older OP levels, both had a conclusive answer to why. OP levels were special levels that could only be obtained by beating the raid on Digistruct Peak. These levels gave stronger and stronger weapons, and thus had to be completed if you wanted to truly max out your character. Mayhem mode gave stronger weapons and had special augments locked behind higher Mayhem levels. While there was no difficulty whatsoever and you could very easily jump from 0 to 10, there was still an actual reason to turn on Mayhem mode. There wasn't really a reason to turn it off, to be fair. I can get the strongest character possible without ever touching UVH. It does not offer special levels, higher rarity weapons, stronger weapons, or even more weapons in general. There are a few firmwares, also known as set bonuses, that are locked behind UVH, and you get a higher chance for licensed parts. But you can get all the set bonuses at UVH 1. And unless it's not a Jacobs weapon that you want a Jacobs part on, you do not care about licensed parts at all. So the only real benefit of going through all of the challenges required to get UVH 5 is an exclusive skin.
Hi guys, Mr. Waffles here.
I don't want to hang on to this that much. I think the levels themselves have a decent amount of balance, only really thrown off by a few glitches and overpowered interactions that are overperforming. I am also aware that endgame stuff in Borderlands is usually added later with additional levels and raids and DLCs. I am also aware that Borderlands has never really had an endgame that everyone has enjoyed. But in a game that feels surprisingly complete, this in-game structure feels incredibly hollow. The grind from 30 to 50 is very fun, and once you hit 50, you kinda just have these challenges that feel more cheesy than difficult, and don't actually provide a real incentive to do them anyway. I wish these levels were harder to get and had an actual purpose. You don't have to follow in the footsteps of your predecessors and tie exclusive levels to it. Maybe allow us to pick what buffs the enemies have and have a much higher chance of specific guns or specific elements or specific firmware to the bosses that have them, so you have a reason to play and stack one or two of these abilities on these bosses. But you still have the option to just not play against them and grind if you don't want to. Maybe only bring UVH levels in when you bring Pearlescence into the game, and have that be the exclusive thing that forces players to turn it on. But you gotta have something, anything that can answer the all-important question of why. I know I ended on a somewhat negative note, but overall, the game is good. The story is great, the gameplay is refreshing, and it really does seem like everyone wants this game to succeed. Everyone except Mr. Pitchford, apparently. Personally, I think it has had the best launch out of any Borderlands game. There is a lot to do and a lot to enjoy. The price is a steep $70, and I cannot believe I am actually saying this, but I think it's worth it. I have already gotten $70 worth of value out of it, and there's a good chance they fix a lot of the issues I currently have. If you like Borderlands, I would recommend this game. It isn't perfect, but it definitely is a return to form.
Dude, what if instead of the Forge Knight, he was the Freak Knight?